Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Danny and this is Gen X Diesel. Last week, which was last Friday, we left off with starting the series of being disabled. So this is part 2. Last week I was going to the sale barn to try to make a little extra cash, and good news, I did make a little extra cash. So not as much as I'd hoped, but you know, every little bit helps. So this week, of course, I took a couple days off because of Mother's Day weekend. But today, I'm going to start off with when I finally went on disability. The company I was working for, it got to where I couldn't do the job that required me to do, and so went out on company disability. It's insurance that I had through company, and started my journey of being disabled and everything, and trying to get back surgery done. And I had a lot of problems with that. Number one, my weight. The deal with the temporary disability that I had through work, it took, I want to say, 3 to 6 weeks before it started taking in or started working. And you know, lost a vehicle we had just bought, hadn't had it long, maybe a year. To me that's not long, but yeah, about a year maybe. We had the vehicle and couldn't make the payment, so you know, it got repoed. And the funny thing is the week after it got repoed, that's when money started kicking in, and I couldn't make a payment. But you know, it's one of the deals where, you know, they want it now because you're behind. So you know, it is what it is. But on that, I wasn't making that much, you know, every week. You know, I was getting paid every week on that, but I wasn't getting paid much. Not like it was when I was working. You know, it's probably maybe a little less than half of what I was making every week through them, and every week through them, I was, depending on the work schedule and where I was working at, I could make up to $2,000 every 2 weeks. So that's right. Sorry, it was every 2 weeks I got paid on disability through work. But it's about like workman's comp, but it wasn't workman's comp. Because I didn't put it down that I got hurt on the job, which I didn't with that company. I got hurt on the job with the other company I worked for. So I wasn't going to blame that on another company. It was my fault not turning it in when I was on the first company I was working for. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, every 2 weeks I was getting less than half of what I was making through, you know, actual working for them. But it still helped. You know, it helped get groceries, that kind of thing. My wife was still out working on the road without me. She didn't like it. I didn't like it, but you know, what can you do? You gotta have the money, right? So anyway, so I was on that for about I want to say 3 weeks to about a month and a half, somewhere around there. 6 weeks, something like that. I was on that, and then I couldn't get my surgery done because, like I said, I was a smoker, which I still am, but I was also overweight. My weight had to be down a certain amount, and when you can't walk long distance and you can't, you know, lift up, you know, my restriction was no standing longer than, you know, 15 to 20 minutes at a time, no lifting anything over 15 pounds, not a lot of walking, you know, that kind of thing. When you're restricted to that type of mobility, when your mobility is restricted like that, where you can't do the job that's required, or even to work out, you know, to try to lose weight, makes it hard to lose weight. And so I dealt with that. Well, about, I'm going to say, like I said, about 6 weeks, maybe. It might have been it might have been 2 months. Okay, I'm gonna say it may have been 2 months. That I've, went ahead and filed for disability. And I think everybody I've talked to has always had problems on getting on disability. They've, it's always either took them, 2 or 3 times, to get on disability and everything. Most people that I've talked to. So I set the thing up. And of course, I had to go to the doctor. I had to fill all this paperwork out. The doctor had to fill out the paperwork. I had to send it all in to for the disability. And I got all that done. Filled it all in. Sent it all in. Got it all filled out. I'm mumbling my words. I ain't had much sleep. When you're in pain, you don't get much sleep. But anyway, got it all filled out. Sent my paperwork, the doctor's paperwork, sent it all in to the disability, Social Security, whatever it is. They said, I can't remember now what all it sends to. But anyway, I got it all sent in. And I want to say it was probably 3 weeks. Got a phone call. Started talking to a lady on the phone. And I said, I don't know. I'm have to let me check my paperwork. So I had to go find out my paperwork and stuff. And so we sat there for probably a good hour on the phone, discussing my options, discussing what was the next procedure, what I had to do again. Then she said, "Well, I'll give you a call back and let you know what we're going to proceed on, or how we're going to proceed, or whatever." Okay. Now, meanwhile, while I was on my company's disability, I had to go to doctor ever so often. I had to fill out paperwork about every month. I think it was. I had to fill out paperwork every month while I was on the company disability, and that was, to me, that was a pain. Having to call them every 3 to 4 weeks. I had to call them and say, look, this is my situation. Yes, I'm still smoking. I haven't been able to lose weight because I can't work out, because, whatever the situation is, I just can't. And, well, about 2 weeks after I talked to that lady through SSI, she calls me back and she's, okay, you got a hearing set up. And at this time, COVID was going through. And so she's like, but we can't do the courtroom deal. We'll do it over the phone if that's okay with you, or we can do a FaceTime call. And I said, I don't know how to work these computers and FaceTime, but I'll be more than welcome to do it. More than happy to do a 3-way call, do it that way. So that's what we done. They got me a lawyer. The lawyer calls me. I talked to the lawyer about my situation, how things were going. Well, I had a preliminary hearing about a month after I talked to her. I talked to that lawyer, and I didn't have to pay for the lawyer. All that was took care of by the government, or by my state, I guess you could say, the state where I live at. So all that was taken up with them. So we sat there, and I got on the phone with my lawyer first. She said, "This is just a preliminary." She said, "Unless the judge asks you a question to you, unless he says, Mr. So-and-so, ask me a question," she said, "don't answer anything." She said, "Let me handle everything." Okay, fine, no problem. I'll let you do it. I was nervous anyway, because I was, in my back of my mind, I kept thinking, well, everybody's told me it's so hard to get on, You have to file several times. So I was so worried about it. And so we got on there with the preliminary deal. She took over the conversation. The judge asked her several things. She answered them. The judge come back and he said, "Mr. So-and-so," he said, "well, may I ask you a few questions?" I said, "Yes, sir, Your Honor. Ask me what you need." And so he asked me how I got hurt. And I said, the kind of work I do, or I did, which was remodeling, required me to do a lot of lifting, a lot of bending, that kind of thing. And I think I just lifted wrong or something, but something got me in my back, I said, and ever since then I've not been the same, you know. And he's like, okay. He said, understand that. And then he asked me, you know, some other questions of certain things and all. And I answered what I could, you know, truthfully, as truthful as I could, you know, because it had been a while. So a lot of things I couldn't remember, you know. And he's like, okay. And so she put me on mute. She said, I'll be right back with you. She said, just hang out here for a few minutes. I said, okay. And I guess they went and talked or whatever on the phone and stuff. She come back to me. She said, okay. She says, just me and you now. She said, preliminary hearing went well. She said, you have a next hearing will be on such and such date. She said, what the clerk will call you. When you answer the phone, it'll automatically open up to, you know, our proceedings and everything go from there. She said, again, let me handle everything unless the judge specifically talks to you. I was like, okay. So a couple weeks goes by. I get back into the thing. This time it's the actual real hearing, and he wanted to hear from me what my doctor said. I guess he's wanting to see if I said anything different than what was on the paper. Well, I had my papers right here with me, so, you know, I was ready for anything that, you know, he asked me. But, you know, he started asking me, he said, what's your limit on, you know, lifting, and I told him, I said, well, you know, it's, you know, X amount of weight, which at that time, like I said, it was 15 pounds, couldn't lift over 15 pounds. Asked me about my standing, and I said, well, I said things has actually gotten a little worse since the paperwork's come in. I said, but at the time, I was limited, you know, to about 15 minutes standing time. I said, now it's gotten down to where it's about 8 or 9 minutes. I said, I start getting numb on my legs from the waist down. And he said, okay. He said, I understand that. And he said, well, what about work? He said, housework and house cleaning, that kind of stuff. He said, do you do any of that? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, I actually live in a camper, which that time I did. I said, so I don't have a lot to clean up. I said, but I do what little bit I can, then I sit down. I said, my wife does most of it when she comes home. I said, but a lot of times, you know, I'll do what I can so she don't have so much to do, you know. I said, but as there again, you know, I can't stand long. I can't walk too far. Thankfully, we're in a camper, so it's not that big an area to walk, you know, and everything. He's like, okay. And then he asked me about my surgery, and I gave him the thing about the surgery. You know, I got to be down below a certain amount of weight. Got to quit the smoking. I said, both are hard for me to do because, number one, I've been smoking since I was 16 years old, actually 10 years old. I said, and, you know, I can't lose the weight because I can't do a lot of work. You know, I can't do a lot of movement. And he's like, okay. He said, well, give me just a minute and I'll be right back with you. And the phone call went dead. And I sat there and sat there and sat there. My lawyer come back. She says, you've been approved. She said, it'll start immediately. And I'm like, really? And yeah, I'm like, cool, you know. So money come out, you know. About a month later, I started getting my paycheck because I was getting my paycheck from disability and I was getting my paycheck from the work disability. So I was doing pretty good on pay, you know. And then with my wife, she started making more money than what we both were making when I was working with her because she moved up to a project manager, and which put her on salary. So, you know, we were in good standings then, you know, and so everything was doing pretty good for a while. Well, then about 3 years into that, I still had to do my phone call to my work disability. I still had to do my phone call to them. I keep calling it work disability because I can't remember exactly what the term is on it. So I apologize. If you do know, great. You can let me know, remind me what it's called because I don't remember. But anyway, still had to make phone calls to them. Well, I ended up going through like 3 different agents while I was on that. The first lady, she was there for almost a year with me, and then I started getting different people. Nobody would call me. I'd have to call them, you know. And I usually got at least 1 phone call a month from them just to see how I was going. Plus, I had to call in and check and let them know my situation and stuff. But didn't know what they needed or anything else. They'd send me paperwork to fill out. Half of it I didn't know how to fill it out, so I'd have to get a hold of somebody. Then they'd get back with me, and they never did, and I had to call again, and it was just a big mess. And well, the last phone call I got from them, which was last year, about this time last year actually, and the conversation was kind of like, well, how are things going? And I told them, I still can't lose the weight. I've gotten down some. I'm about 30 pounds away from what I need to be to get my surgery. I said my smoking has went down to about a pack a day. I said, so I'm working on that as well. I said, I'm getting close to everything. I said, it's taking time. Number one, for my weight, it's taking time because I can't do a lot. I said, the summertime's usually the best time, but I still can't go and do much. I go out I got a shop outside here. It's like a little car shed, and I try to tinker with doing some little woodworking here and there just to try to get me moving, as much as possible. But most of that's still sitting down, so that way I'm not hurting myself. So anyway, I explained to her that stuff, and she said, well, this is what her quote was. Well, since you don't want to lose weight and you don't want to quit smoking, we're looking at revising your care, your medical disability. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, well, we're going to send you an offer. She said, and you can decline if you want. That's fine. She said, or you can accept the offer. She said, it's totally up to you. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, you've been on this for 3 years. She said, and since it's showing that you're showing no improvement on your weight loss or your stop smoking, she said, we've got to re-up everything and see how it's going forward. I'm like, okay, well, send me the information and I'll look it over. She's like, okay. So basically what it was, they sent me a document, sent me a piece of paper saying that I can stay on the medical disability through the work, or I can go ahead and take a payout. And what they owed me was about almost 70 some $1,000 what they owed me. What they're willing to pay me was quite a bit less than that. It's like, wasn't even in the 30s, I'll put it that way. Wasn't even 30,000, it was less than that. So let's put it that way. And I'm like, wow, I don't know. I went and talked to my wife about it, and she said, it's totally up to you. She said, you're going through the disability. She said, I'm not. And I said, yeah, but it involves both of us because we're both married, right? Because once I get that, the money I'm getting every month through them, I'm going to lose it, right? So when I lose that money, that means we're going to have that X amount of money shy every month that we're used to having, and it's going to be like a shocker to us because we're not used to losing that kind of money. And then, here again, like I said, at the time, she was still making good money because she was still working for the same company, and she wasn't a project, she was higher than a project manager, and so she was making even more money, which was good. But still, when you take a big chunk a month out of your pay that you're used to, because usually what it was is I would get my Social Security check, my disability check, and then like the week after I would get the medical disability check from the company that I worked for. So it was like I was getting a paycheck every other week, which was really good because, especially one it was fairly decent. Still ain't good enough. Still ain't what I should be getting. In my opinion, I still should be getting more, considering I've worked ever since I was 15 years old. Then I had the other paycheck that was coming in, and it was in the hundreds of dollars. More than 100, but what I'm saying, it was almost 1,000 a month. So that was really helping us both out. She got paid every 2 weeks, so usually the week she didn't get paid, I was getting paid. So we was able to keep our bills up, keep things coming in and all that kind of stuff. No issues, no problems, and even to be able to save some money. Well, so I said, I can keep what I'm doing now, and they dropped me because number one, I haven't lost my weight that I need to lose. Number two, I haven't quit smoking. So I got to where I could either take the payout, even though the payout's a third of what they're willing to give me, actually less than a third of what they're willing to give me, or I can take a chance of staying on it and they just drop me and I get nothing. That was my predicament I was in, right? I mean, it could have been a thing to where they could drop my money down a couple $100s and still paid me until I had my surgery, or they could have just dropped me completely and I have no money, nothing to answer for or anything else, right? I could appeal it and try to get more money and still lose, or something. It was that situation. I really didn't know what to do, and I didn't really have anyone that's went through it. Nobody in my family, side of the family, has ever went through it. I didn't have any friends that went through it. Didn't have her side of the family never went through it. So I really didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Didn't have a lawyer or anybody else to call and talk to about it or anything like that. So I decided to take the payout and just be done with it. With the payout, I didn't have to worry about calling them every month, making sure they knew what was going on. We didn't have to live under that little microscope of them and stuff. And, just say, look, we just have to be prepared for, not having this money coming in every month, And, excuse me. So, I went ahead and filled out for the payout. Well, my wife and I talked about it, and we decided that the vehicle I had right now, or at the time, but not right now, I don't have it now, but at the time, the vehicle I had wasn't a good vehicle. And yes, I can still drive, I can go to the store, I can do stuff like that. It's just, when I can go to Walmart, I usually get the cart. If they got one. If they don't have a cart, I lean on the shopping cart until I can't stand no more, and I'll go back out to the vehicle. My wife will finish shopping. But that's just how I live my life right now. So we decided, since my vehicle was about in really bad shape, she's got a newer vehicle. We'll try to get me another vehicle. So when the money came, I got me another vehicle, that kind of thing. Paid off some other bills, to help us out, because like I said, we're losing money every week or every month. So we did that, and now, she lost her job on the other one. They started having some cutbacks and stuff, and since she was the lowest person on the totem pole, they let her go. They gave her a pretty good severance pay, which helped out on some of the stuff that we needed to get paid, and we worked all that out, and now, she's making about half, actually probably not even half of what she was making, and she gets paid every week, but even if you figured out if she got paid every 2 weeks, she still would be making half of what was making. So that really put us in a bind. Plus, disability went down. Well, then they raised the disability up. This year, it went up $100. Woohoo, $100, yeah. But anyway, but what I think sucks on disability and the Social Security and all that, you pay into the disability, Social Security, all your years you working. When you retire, you get you're supposed to get the money back, right? But you don't. When you get on disability, they only go back X amount of years and figure out, okay, you only worked X amount of years, so this is what you're worth, that's your disability. Even though you spent, 50 years, or for me, it'd been almost 40 years working. At this point in time, it's almost 40 years that I spent working my whole life. I'm only worth what I was working in the last 6 years, and that's, to me, that's not right. I think we're getting screwed by the government on that. But anyway, so I did that. Well, I always get these little email, or they're not emails, but letters in the mail about, finding a job. Well, the only problem about finding a job is I can't make but so much money on disability or I'll lose the disability, right? That's why I'm not so worried about becoming monetized here on YouTube or anything like that, because if I make X amount of dollars a month, then I will lose my disability. And it's actually, I think it's I looked it up, $1,200 and some dollars a month is all I'm allowed to make and still not hurt my disability. Now, I can go on they've got a 9-month trial that you can do, but in that 9-month trial, if that first month or first 3 months, first 3 months, if I make over $2,000 in that first 2 months, then my disability drops down. It goes down to, it'll take like a penny or so off of my monthly check, but it's not just a penny off of that. I mean, if it was just a penny, it wouldn't be a big deal. It's a penny off of every hour that I worked for that company that I'd be working for, and that's how much it would come off of my Social Security. Well, the problem with that is, if I do the 9-month thing, I can stop working, keep my disability, not lose none of my disability, but they can come back and say, okay, well, you worked 9 months. Why can't you work another 9? Why can't you work another 9? And go on until I'm off of disability, so that way I don't have insurance to take care of my bills I have, won't have insurance to take care of my doctors that I got, because I have to go to the doctor every 3 months anyway, regardless, because I'm on disability. And all these other doctors I have to go see for other issues that I have, I won't have insurance to take care of that, because company insurance really sucks. I mean, even disability insurance sucks, but it's a little better than company insurance. It's more regulated, so I can get that is benefits with being on disability insurance, because you get a little more perks, I guess you could say, than what you do with company insurance. But it still ain't the best. But anyway, so kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, I could go and probably work for Walmart and be the greeter at Walmart and have me a stool there and sit on it when I need to and greet people as they come in the door. But there again, I couldn't work no more than about 2 or 3 hours a day to be able to stay underneath what I need to stay under, so I don't start losing benefits. And where I live at, it's a 25-minute drive just to get to Walmart. So if I only work, 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours most a day, and you know how Walmart is, they'll work you for 3 or 4 days and you're not working again for another 5 or 6, and you're back through, especially when you're in a situation like I am, disabled. They know I can't work much anyway, so they're not going to put me there. So it really wouldn't justify me driving 25 minutes away every day for about 5 hours worth of work, tops. And even if they paid me full pay, what they usually pay the Walmart workers, which is, I think nowadays they're making anywhere between $17 to $20 some an hour. It still wouldn't be worth my time, because at that much I may have to go down to working only 2 hours a day, or 3 hours a day, because I don't want to lose my can't lose my benefits. So that's the kind of thing I'm in right now, and I get bored real easy. So if I'm sitting there, hey, welcome to Walmart, hey, welcome to Walmart, that'll drive me nuts. There's just no way I could do it. So, I'm kind of in between a rock and a hard place, And right now, I am about 20 pounds. I think I got like 15 more pounds or so to go now, to where I'll be below the threshold of having surgery. And I'm still wanting to have the surgery. I mean, I'm 54 years old, but, I still think I can get out there. If I can get the surgery, I can get out there and work. I'm not lazy. I don't mind working. I always thought it'd be nice to be able to sit at home, not be able to do nothing, but it sucks. I mean, it really does. It sucks. So right now, that's what I'm working on now is trying to get, I found a few chair exercises I can do, which does help. I've also done some fasting, which does help. It's just a slow process. It's not like, when you're 20 years old and you need to lose 20 pounds, a lot of people do that in 2 weeks. you know, because they're working. You know, if they're out there working, you can lose 20 pounds in no time, you know, especially when you're in your 20s. But when you're in your 50s, it takes longer to lose weight, especially when you can't get out and go working, right? So, disability really sucks. I'm glad that they have a disability system, which no other country does. But it really hurts you in the long run, because you can't really do what you want to do, you know, when you're on disability. I mean, I like going fishing. I can't do that. You know, I mean, I can, but it hurts to go do it. You know, and it's not any fun anymore if you can't go do it, right? So, you know, it's one of them deals where it's a love-hate relationship with it, but it also, situation that I got to go through, I have no way of, you know, other than losing the weight and stuff. That's the only way I can get back out of it. And I've seen a couple of videos on here where some people are on Social Security or disability, and they started getting monetized and started making money. Well, started reporting the money. Well, then they got kicked off of it. You know, so what are they going to do when your YouTube channel don't keep rocking like it was, or you have one of them bad days like me? You know, there's some mornings I wake up and I can't even move because my back hurts so bad, or I've got one side that's so numb, you know, from the waist down that I can't hardly walk. You know, I ain't gonna feel like getting on YouTube and doing a video. You know, if it's just talking, you know, I'm not gonna feel like doing it because I'm hurting so bad, you know. And that's what worries me is, you know, I don't mind telling my story, and I don't mind letting people know how my day's going or anything like that. I just don't want to lose that money, you know. And the world runs on money. We all know that, you know. You got to have money to make the world. Money makes the world go round, I guess you could say. But anyway, that's my spiel on the first video. Was, you know, teenager working up through till I got on disability, and you know, now I'm on disability, and it's not a pleasant one. I don't know what my next video will be about. It could be a range of things. Sometimes I get on here just to ramble. Sometimes I get on here and actually have something to say. I mean, this is only like my 5th or 6th video, I think it is, something like that I've shared. But I want to thank y'all for hanging out for 30 minutes. I really appreciate it. It's almost 35 minutes now, it looks like. Didn't mean for it to go this long today, but I did ramble a little bit. But if you could, like, share, subscribe. Like I said, I'm not really worried about getting monetized, because I can't make a whole lot of money, you know. But, you know, if I can make $500 a month, hey, that's $500 a month. You know, that's extra. I don't have to worry about. I don't have to report that. So that's a good thing. You know, anything less than the $1,200, I don't have to report. So it is a good thing. But it's also, you know, don't know if that's a guarantee or not. You know what I'm saying? So there again, thanks again for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope that you got something out of this. If you got somebody that's, do you know someone that's looking at getting in on disability or needs to get on disability? I don't know a whole lot, but I don't mind having conversations with them. But sure, have them watch this video. Maybe it'll give them a little leeway of what to do or how to do things. I think if you got all your ducks in a row, now, like I said, you know, it might help me that I was already on, you know, company disability, medical leave, or whatever you want to call it. That may have helped me get on disability faster because of that. I don't know. But, you know, there again, share it to someone that may be looking into getting on disability or needs disability. Give them this video, let them see it, and they can talk to me in the comments or something, you know. Maybe I can help them out with something. But I do appreciate you watching. And like I said, don't forget to hit that little like button and that little share button and that little notification button. You can ding it and you'll know when I pop up another video. With that being said, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, and y'all have a good rest of the day and a good week. And just remember, Jesus loves you.